All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the story of the Jaypee Group. And this is a fascinating one. Here's a company that literally built modern India. We're talking dams, highways, the works, and then, in a stunning turn of events, became one of the biggest corporate collapses the country has ever seen.
And it all began with this really powerful, almost noble idea from the founder, Jaiprakash. He believed that if you had resources, you had a duty to use them to build a better tomorrow for everyone. That was the core philosophy, the guiding light for everything they did.
So you've got this incredible contrast, right? At their peak, they were building India's tallest dam, hosting Formula One races, total symbols of a rising India. But then, on the flip side, over 75,000 crores in debt, insolvency, and thousands of people left high and dry. The big question is, how on earth did a company that built national monuments end up in complete financial ruin? Okay, let's get into it.
So let's rewind a bit. The story really kicks off back in 1979. And you have to understand, the Jaypee Group wasn't just some company. No, they were an absolute behemoth in construction. They were the ones who took on the toughest, most challenging projects, literally building the foundations of modern India. Really, at its heart, Jaypee was just this incredible engineering powerhouse. I want you to think for a second about the most difficult, most ambitious projects you can imagine. The kind of stuff that really defines a nation's progress. Well, that was Jaypee's playground. That's where they absolutely thrived.
And this right here, this just gives you a taste of their massive scale. We're not just talking about construction projects. These are national landmarks. The Terry Dam, Sardar Sarovar. Look at that last point. They were so dominant in hydropower that at their peak they were responsible for more than a quarter, 27%, of India's entire installed capacity. That is just mind-boggling.
So with all this incredible success, they were just swimming in confidence, right? And what did they do? They went on one of the most aggressive expansion sprees you can possibly imagine. They didn't just grow, they exploded into basically every single sector they could think of.
First up, cement. And this made perfect sense, right? They were building all these massive dams and highways, so they needed tons and tons of it. So why not make it themselves? They became one of the country's biggest producers, basically fueling their own growth machine.
Next, power. They were already experts in hydropower, so they figured, hey, let's get into thermal plants too. And just like that, they built this huge, diversified energy portfolio. The goal was to power the entire nation.
And then they got into expressways. This is where they built the famous Yamuna Expressway, 165 kilometers of pristine, 6-lane highway. It was a game changer, completely transforming how you got from the Delhi area to Agra, the city of the Taj Mahal.
Okay, so you've built the expressway. What's the next logical step? Real estate, of course. And they didn't think small. They launched something called Wish Town, which was supposed to be this huge city within a city, promising an amazing lifestyle to thousands of families right there along that new highway.
But wait, there's more. They didn't stop there. Nope. Next up was luxury hotels. They built up this whole chain of 5-star properties. Adding a bit of glamour and glitz to their massive industrial empire.
And then came maybe their wildest, most ambitious move of all. They brought Formula One to India. Can you believe it? They built a state-of-the-art, world-class racetrack from scratch. This single act put India on the global motorsports map and just sealed their reputation as a company that thought ridiculously big.
Their motto was transforming challenges into opportunities, and that just perfectly summed up their whole vibe. It felt like nothing was too big for them, no industry was off limits. But, and this is a huge but, all of this incredible ambition, it came at a staggering, almost unbelievable cost.
Okay, so this is where things get really interesting. You have to ask yourself, how did they pay for all of this? How do you even begin to finance an empire that's building everything, everywhere, all at the same time?
Well, the answer is pretty simple, and it comes down to one word: debt. A lot of debt. By 2016, to pay for the cement plants, the power stations, the F1 track, the hotels, all of it, the group's debt had just ballooned. We're talking over 75,000 crore rupees. That's more than $9 billion US. It's just an astronomical mountain of borrowed cash.
There's a term for this in finance. It's called over-leveraging, and that's exactly what happened here. The whole beautiful dream, from the massive dams to that flashy F1 track, it was all built on a shaky foundation of borrowed money. So what happens when the economy takes a downturn or interest rates start to go up? Well, that's when the cracks started to appear.
And what happened next was, well, it was a slow, painful, and very, very public collapse. The empire started to unravel, and the group got locked into this desperate cycle of selling off its best assets just to try and pay back the banks.
Starting around 2014, it was basically a fire sale. They were forced to sell off their crown jewels, just one piece at a time. Think about the irony here. The very cement plants and hydropower projects that were the foundation of their empire, they were now being sold off to their biggest competitors, all in a frantic attempt to just keep their heads above water.
But, this wasn't just a story about numbers on a balance sheet. There was a real human cost. The biggest victims, arguably, were just ordinary people. You had over 17,000 families who had poured their entire life savings into a dream home in that Wishtown project. And they were just left stranded. Construction just stopped, and their dreams vanished.
Even after selling off billions of dollars worth of assets, it just wasn't enough. The hole was too deep. So in 2017, things got official. Their real estate division was dragged into insolvency proceedings. That's basically the legal process for when a company officially can't pay its bills anymore. And that started this long, drawn-out legal battle that went on for years. And eventually, the main parent company itself ended up in insolvency, facing a forced takeover.
So, okay, after this whole epic saga, you've got nation building, this insane expansion, and then a catastrophic collapse. What's the final chapter? How does the Jaypee story actually end?
All right, this slide right here is the final scorecard. It's the final reckoning. So look at this. The creditors, the banks and lenders, were owed almost 57,000 crore rupees, a huge number. Now look at what the acquirer, Adani, ended up paying, about 14,500 crore. That's, roughly a quarter of what they were owed? And then the most brutal part. Look at the bottom line. The value for the original shareholders, the people who own the company, including the founders, zero. Nothing. Completely wiped out.
The story of the Jaypee Group is just such a powerful cautionary tale. It really shows you how ambition can literally build a nation. But it also shows you how that same ambition, when it's unchecked and just fueled by endless debt, can bring a whole empire crashing down. It really leaves you with this one big question, doesn't it? Where exactly is that fine line between having a bold vision and taking a fatal risk?